Next speaker, Mr. Emmett McGroarty. He is the Executive Director of the Preserve Innocence Initiative at the American Principles Project. He is also the co-founder of TruthInAmericanEducation.com. Preserve Innocence works to protect parental rights and to promote government policies that protect the innocence of children and to fight those policies that drive a wedge between the parent-child relationship. It is working to stop the federal takeover of education. Emmett has provided commentary and analysis on the federal education takeover and its affronts to the underpinnings of our democratic republic. Emmett has received his bachelor's from Georgetown University and his Juris Doctorate from Fordham School of Law. Emmett will describe the national efforts to stop Common Core. Please welcome Mr. Emmett McGroarty.
So I'm a lawyer, and I'm from Washington, D.C., and I'm here to help. There's a tragic consistency with the Common Core. Through the process in which it was inflicted upon the people, it denigrated our constitutional structure. And through its content, it fails to prepare our children to be the citizen leaders that our founders intended. We know, as we've heard today, that the Common Core is of poor quality. This is not a subjective matter, it's a matter of fact. As you have heard by the admission of its architect, Common Core fails to prepare children for competitive four-year universities, and it fails to prepare children for STEM studies. It has this fuzzy math approach that slows their learning progression. It throws out traditional Euclidean geometry in favor of a system of teaching geometry that has failed everywhere in the world in which it has been implemented, K-12. It is unconscionable to inflict Common Core math on students and teachers. It is downright sinful, too, in that it will widen the achievement gap between well-to-do families and those who are not. This is because richer families will move their children to private academies that do not use the Common Core. They will buy private tutoring and enroll their children in programs like Kumon. They will pay the money necessary to ensure that their children are properly educated. Likewise, Common Core's severe de-emphasis of classic literature in favor of informational texts will weaken a child's preparation for university, for citizenship, and for professional success. It is through the study of classic literature that children more quickly develop a rich vocabulary, learn to express themselves, hone their analytical thinking, and vicariously develop empathy and prudential decision-making. Children who read classic literature become better readers, even of informational texts, than those who read informational texts. That's what studies and centuries of experience tell us. Moreover, it is through the study of classic fiction rather than dry informational texts that children develop a love for reading. And over 300 early learning cognitive scientists have condemned Common Core as being age inappropriate. Dr. Carla Horowitz of the Yale Child Study Center was quoted in the Washington Post last year as stating, "The core standards will cause suffering, not learning, for many, many young children." But how did we get into this mess, and why aren't we out of it? Common Core is an effort of special interests, like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, that convinced and gave money to two associations, the National Governors Association and the Council of Chief State School Officers, to take up their plan. These special interests, in turn, convinced the federal government that they had a plan that would produce more children who were ready for university studies and for professional success. The Common Core they promised would be evidence-based and comparable with the high-performing countries, comparable with what the high-performing countries and states do. And it's because of the involvement of these two associations, as you heard Jim Sturgis tell us, that the proponents claim that the Common Core is state-led. But these two associations are not are incorporated private entities. They are not state bodies. They don't have grants of authority from the states. They are not subject to Freedom of Information Acts or other sunshine laws. They are headquartered in the District of Columbia, not even in a state, much less in 50 states or 57 states. It would be difficult for a state to even assert general legal jurisdiction over them. Moreover, National Governors Association even takes money from the federal government. So when governors attend and participate, they are not engaging in state action. Through their involvement in these associations, the governors and state superintendents essentially lend the luster of their titles to the associations, and the associations use that luster to garner funding. I submit to you, though, that this turns the government, this turns the governors and school superintendents away from the people and makes them responsive instead to the special interests. Lest you had any doubt whether this is state-led, in their December 2008 policy paper, Benchmarking for Success, right when the new administration was preparing to take office, the NGA and Council of Chief State School Officers asked the federal government to take up the Common Core effort. States initially committed to the promise of the Common Core, that the standards would be rigorous and internationally benchmarked. It was a promise unto which politicians on both sides of the aisle quickly signed on. Some supported it because they wanted it to score points on federal grant competitions. And some, no doubt, thought it would improve education. But the problem is that the Common Core at that time had not been drafted. When the final product came out, it failed to meet its promise. But those who orchestrated the National Common Core effort did not want to admit this. And governors and state school boards signed their states onto the Common Core in order to get the points on federal grant competitions. A competition that most states did not win. And they did so without giving their citizens and their legislators meaningful notice. Moving forward, the states have given away a tremendous amount of their sovereignty. States no longer control their English and math content and standards, standardized test content, testing schedule, days devoted to testing, testing budgets, proficiency standards, and vast swaths of teacher evaluations. Soon states will likely have to surrender control over school calendars as well, right? If everyone's taking the same test, you pretty much are going to have roughly the same number of days of teaching under their belt. Common Core proponents tell legislators that the states can change the standards whenever they want. In a sense, that's true. I mean, it's true in this sense. Each state has the sovereign authority to make all the decisions it wants to regarding education. But what the Common Core states have done is to essentially abdicate that decision-making in favor of a group decision. Instead of making the standards and testing decisions based on the will of their people, states are making those decisions based on the decisions of private associations, other states, and likely the federal government. Common Core states have committed to collaboration and sharing, not to responding to the will of their people. Furthermore, the Common Core is proof that corporatists do not have an identity of interest with parents. Corporatists look at children as human capital that should be trained to fill their needs, to supply an abundant workforce. They do not look at children as individuals who must be educated to be capable of pursuing the truth and understanding humanity, persons of substance in their churches, in their communities, and in their country. The Common Core product is horrendous, but the plan to push it into the states was brilliant. Brilliant in a sad, tragic way. But there's two things that the Common Core strategists did not count on. They did not anticipate that parents and other citizens would rise up to once again direct government to be the citizen leaders upon which our constitutional structure rests. And they did not anticipate that the passion of a mom in the State House sitting across from a legislator or governor would be far more powerful than the influence of corporations and their paid to play friends like the Chamber of Commerce. Legislators and governors, with few notable exceptions, are in unfamiliar territory now. With regard to most issues, they know who their supporters are. They can figure out how much to push certain issues and when to lay back on other issues, and therefore have a reasonable chance at re-election. The Common Core, though, is a different matter for them. It is a new issue, and it is one that the media has failed utterly to understand. The media rarely recognizes the truth and the beauty of the pushback against the Common Core. This is a movement started by parents and other citizens who are rising up to reclaim their constitutional inheritance, an inheritance that is meant to protect their right to determine what their children are taught. The media has failed, too, to report on the poor quality of the Common Core. The result is that legislators and governors, except for the few conscientious ones, have been unsure of what they should do. The American people, I believe, will be forgiving to a degree. They understand that governors faced federal coercion in signing on to the Common Core. Although I'll note in this regard, Thomas Jefferson said that the states themselves must erect barriers at the constitutional line to protect against federal intrusion. The states failed to do that when the Common Core got pushed onto them. In fairness, most legislators did not even have noticed that was happening, but they are all on notice now. We need legislators and governors to courageously stand up to the federal government and the corporatists, and we need them to lead their states out of the Common Core to a truly high-quality system of education. Abraham Lincoln said, "To sin by silence when they should protest makes cowards of men." Those governors and legislators who fight the good fight will be heroes, regardless of what they did or failed to do in the past on this issue. However, this is a rapidly closing window for these legislators and governors. Over the last 8 months or so, a true national movement has arisen to get rid of the Common Core, to push back against the federal intrusion, and to cleanse our system of corporatism. Parents do not want their children to be taught the Common Core garbage for another year. Legislators and governors need to come to grips with this and get their states out this session. If they don't, there will surely be moral forgiveness from the people, but there will not be political forgiveness. As rapidly as this movement has grown over the last 8 months, it promises to grow much more rapidly over the next 8 months. So for the corporatists and other elitists, I note that they have proven that they can drive education policy and that they can do so with only a passing nod to the constitutional structure and to the people. With regard to this Common Core and all its related tentacles, so far every check and balance put in place by the founders has failed. And the corporatists and elitists have vast resources still at hand. They have the establishment in both parties. They have vast amounts of foundation money. They have the corporations involved in the effort. They have the Chamber of Commerce, GE, Gates, ExxonMobil, and the salivating greed of a $600 billion per year K-12 public education industry. But one check and balance has not failed, and that's the last check and balance: the American people and their will to take back their Constitution. To exercise their right to shepherd their children's formation. And that's where things stand now. Legislation is moving through the state houses across America. As you heard my colleague Jane Robbins say, today in her adopted state of Georgia, Common Core exit legislation just passed out of the Senate Education Committee unanimously. Last spring, it failed to get out of committee. Here in Louisiana and elsewhere, the crucial factor now is whether people will get involved. Make a simple few phone calls to their state legislators and governors. Maybe make a visit or two. Connect with other groups. Encourage their friends and families to get involved. The question is simple. Will we reclaim our founding, or will we condemn it by our silence?